Qualified charitable distributions, QCDs, are one of the most underutilized tax planning strategies in your golden years that you need to be aware of. What are some of the common mistakes with QCDs that you need to look out for? I got that and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. We love the qualified charitable distribution, the QCD, but unfortunately, it applies to a lot of people. I'll explain the restrictions here in just a second, but it does apply to a lot of people, but very few actually use it. I think some of that's an awareness issue and something we're trying to combat here. So I'm going to try and make you aware of it, explain how it works, but then also share some common mistakes when it comes to implementing qualified charitable distributions. So normally, if you're in your working career and you are donating money to church or to a charity and so on, then you'll make a donation right out of your bank account or write a check or whatever, and then that donation you can have count and add up in your itemized deductions. And if that donation and mortgage interest and any other donations and other anything else on the itemized deduction list, if that number gets above the standard deduction, then you're taking that itemized deduction. So therefore, it would have helped you on your taxes. But if that number that you itemize and your charitable contributions part of that, if that is below the standard deduction, then you're going to get the standard deduction, which is fine. But just know that basically that charitable contribution, it didn't help you on your taxes. And that's not why you did it anyway, but just be aware of that. That's how it works when you're working. Well, what about when you draw money out of your IRA, let's say, or retirement accounts in retirement, and you also have Social Security, and so therefore you've got your income dialed in and you're drawing the right amount of money out, but then like clockwork, every week you're giving to the church, or every month you're giving to an organization, or at the end of the year you give to a 501c3. Well, if you just do that out of your checking account, essentially on your tax return, you've got to include your IRA withdrawals and all your taxable income and all that sort of stuff. And then once again, just like during your career, this contribution to the church or to charity will be something that gets added up in your itemized deduction, and you'll have to see, well, are you actually going to get a tax benefit for this or not? Will you itemize your taxes or not? And likely in retirement, you're not going to have a big mortgage and you don't have a lot of state taxes, depending, again, just possible. And so it's even less likely in retirement that you're going to itemize. So that's all the backdrop for the opportunity that the qualified charitable distribution presents. Once you reach age 70 and a half, you can actually transfer money directly from your IRA, directly to the church, directly to the 501c3 charity. And in doing so, the organization you're trying to support receives the money. It's great. But that income, that money isn't taxable to you. It doesn't land on your tax return, so there's no need to report the income and then see if you will be able to itemize to get any offsetting tax benefit. There's no need. The income doesn't even land on your tax return because the money went directly to the church. That's a qualified charitable distribution. So real quickly, what are some of the common mistakes when people, with the qualified charitable distribution? The first one is the gimme, but I'm still calling it a mistake, and that is people not doing it. Like, there is just a large swath of folks that are retired, that are over age 70 and a half, that are doing it that way I just mentioned, where without really any forethought, they just are taking income or taking withdrawals from their retirement accounts and then also donating to the church. And part of that, I'm assuming, is just sort of entrenched habit. That's just how I've always done it. And they're not pausing to say, well, wait a second. I'm taking, for example, $3,000 out of my IRA every month to supplement my Social Security, and I'm sending $5,000 total to the church every month. Excuse me, $500 to the church every month. Sorry. Why don't I just send $500 from my IRA to the church every month and change my withdrawal to $2,500? The math all works. Everything is the same except what Uncle Sam gets. because you're only having to report $2,500 a month of income instead of $3,000. So the biggest mistake is just not implementing it. So whether this is for you and you're not yet age 70 and a half and you just need to make that mental note or be aware of this, or maybe you're listening right now and you're thinking of your folks who are past age 70 and a half and you're thinking, I don't know if they're doing this. I think it's just an awareness issue, and then it's just an implementation. So overcome the first mistake, learn about the QCD, work with your certified financial planner to implement it. Second mistake is really connected to that first one, and that is, no, I'm aware of it, but you just assume, well, I'm doing this because I'm taking money out of my IRA and then I'm giving it to the church. I can't tell you how many times people say, I'm going to do a qualified charitable distribution. Send me some money from my IRA and I'll give it to the church, and that'll be a qualified distribution, because they're looking at that saying, well, that's what I'm using the money for. So I would like to take money out of my IRA for the purpose of donating to the 501c3, and I'll take care of that. Now, guys, that actually doesn't work. One of the requirements is it has to go directly from your IRA directly to the church. Check needs to be written in the name of the church or the 501c3, whatever it is. It's got to go directly to them, not to you first. So that's very much connected to that first mistake, but with that distinct difference. You've got to send the money directly from your IRA directly to the organization 501c3. Third QCD mistake is doing a qualified charitable distribution after you've already taken your required minimum distribution. And a lot of times people get the order wrong here, because at the beginning of the year, you're aware, I'm required to take at least a certain amount out of my IRA, so let me just do that. And then you get to the end of the year and you'd say, oh, yes, I could also do this qualified charitable distribution. These are some organizations that I'd like to support at the end of the year. Well, here's why that order is wrong. Because a qualified charitable distribution actually counts towards your required minimum distribution. So for example, if your RMD was 20 grand and you throughout the year were going to give 5 grand to 501c3 charities. Well, if you do your RMD first, you're going to take 20 grand out, it's going to be taxable. Then later in the year, at the end of the year, you take 5 grand out of your IRA, send it directly to the charities you want to support. No problem. $25,000 came out of your account, 20,000 of it was taxable. Okay. Now, if you do the order opposite, if at the beginning of the year, or let's just say a week before you take your RMD, you send 5 grand from your IRA directly to the 501c3s you want to support, then your remaining required minimum distribution is only $15,000. And then you take that $15,000 out. In that instance, only 20 grand total came out of your IRA, so there's benefit to you, and only 15 grand of it was taxable to you. So mistake number 3 is taking your RMD before doing a QCD. Fourth qualified charitable distribution mistake is trying to do a QCD from your 401k or old 403b. You can't do it. I told you got to be age 70 and a half, and it's got to be from an IRA. I use those terms not generically, I use them intentionally, because one of the rules is it's got to come out of an IRA. You can't do a QCD from an old 401k or an old 403b. By the time you reach age 70 and a half, you're going to want to consolidate those things anyway. If you're still working, by all means, continue to fund your 403b and 401k. But if you've retired and you still have these old 401ks, you're going to want to clean things up for convenience, for ensuring that you've got the right beneficiaries, the right investment strategies, and so on. And so, but this is another reason. You can't do a qualified charitable distribution from a 401k or 403b. It's got to come out of an IRA. And then that leads us to the 5th common mistake with qualified charitable distributions, and that is trying to do a qualified charitable distribution from an inherited IRA. Now, okay, this is where it gets a little bit confusing, because if you have an inherited IRA, either from someone that passed away before 2020 and you're required to take a little bit amount out every single year in RMD, or now you're aware of the new 10-year rules with inherited IRAs and you've got to start taking a required minimum distribution as well as have the account emptied within 10 years, that starts next year. Then you might think, well, now I have this RMD, this requirement, and I can use my RMD for a qualified charitable distribution, so I'm just going to do that. If you're not yet age 70 and a half, then you're not allowed to. And it's tricky because the qualified charitable distribution rules look and feel a lot like the required minimum distribution rules. The age used to be the exact same, and so you just assume that those were connected, and they're not. The qualified charitable distribution rules, they're hard-coded. The age is hard-coded at 70 and a half. You're allowed to start doing this. Required minimum distribution ages have moved from 70 and a half to 72, then 73. In the future, it will be 75. So if you have an inherited IRA from someone that you're taking required minimum distributions for, then you are not able to do a QCD unless you're age 70 and a half. I hope that helps. That got very technical, but the spirit is people need to be using qualified charitable distributions. This is an enormous tax benefit to work with your certified financial planner. Plan ahead, get these implemented. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or send us an email, info@Korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.